Hello. I just set up my microphone. I don't know where to put it. I'll put it up here instead of my tea. Hello. There's one person here. I'm so happy. This will be available to watch and listen to once I'm finished, just here on my YouTube channel. And I imagine that I will expand upon the 9 principles of the goddess somehow. I'm not sure how, but I am rereading all of them, and it's really bringing up a lot in what I actually value in terms of my spiritual practice in this lifetime, or in all lifetimes, really. And also, I think there's something in this that needs to be brought forward about the balance of the two, of the feminine principle and the masculine principle. So this isn't a space where I am going to be preaching to you that this is how we should live, but this is a space to convey honesty, and information about the goddess traditions, or the goddess religions, even if you want to say that have been lost to time and buried under patriarchal religion and patriarchal culture. So I am very humbled and deeply honored to be speaking on these 9 principles today. It feels very personal to my story as a mother, as a woman, as a person who has found themselves in this kind of reverence to the earth. And I hope that in sharing these 9 principles and all about where I found them, I'll have full transparency here that these 9 principles don't belong to me. They were written by someone else, and the woman who is the author of these 9 principles gathered them from the synthesis of the study and the practice and the reverence of goddesses in other religions. So it is a creative conglomeration in true goddess fashion, in true goddess form, of 9 principles to guide a spiritual practice or spiritual or even religious perspective of honoring the individual, of honoring the earth, of honoring the feminine, and the mysterious exploration that continues when you set on this path, whether you are a woman in a female body, whether you're a man in a male body, and everything in between. There is something here for all of us, because one of the principles that we'll get into is that the goddess lives in all of us. It's not just for femme presenting people. With that, I'm going to drop in the chat the 9 principles so that you have them, and so that you can read them with me if you join live. If you're not live, I will leave them in the description. So when you're watching this, if you're watching this now, hi, hello, on my YouTube channel, you can read the 9 principles yourself. And I will also put a link to the Book of the Goddess by Anna Livia Plurabelle, who is the author of the sacred text that I am referencing. So with that being said, I invite you to come into a space of curious exploration with this, to open yourself up to your own interpretations for what I'm saying. I'm not here to just download this information into you and turn it into dogma. What I love about the goddess, or the matriarchal path in a spiritual path, is that it is individualistic, and with that comes with our own wisdom, our own innate understanding, our own knowing, and our own winding path towards the central connection that is feminine wisdom, that is of the goddess. And these are words to describe something that's more intimate than just a label, a title, a concept, an idea. So I welcome you to set yourself up for that kind of exploration as I talk, as I teach, and I hope that you find a connection for yourself in the most meaningful way with these 9 principles. Okay, so I'm going to drop the 9 principles in the chat. For anyone who joins. Oh, you know what? I can't drop them in all at once, so I'm going to drop them in one at a time. And that'll be part of my flow. It'll keep me on track too. Okay. The 9 principles of the goddess. Number 1. And this is by Anna Livia Plurabelle, the author of the Book of the Goddess, which you can find in the description below. A link to read this in the description below. Disclosure, and I already kind of said this, but I'll just repeat myself. If you're interested in reading this isn't a sacred text like the Bible. This is a sacred text that this woman created and crafted as a creation of her own interpretation of her own personal deep intimacy on the path of the goddess. So just full disclosure, and that is also the likeness of the path of the goddess from my experience here. Okay, so number 1, I acknowledge that my dog is barking. I hope that it's not disturbing. I'm going to wait for him to stop barking. I have pito pito tea with ginger. It is a Filipino plant, and I got like a variety pack of teas while I was in Chicago recently. Over the new moon, actually. Now it's the full moon. I don't know if he's going to stop. Okay, I'm going to keep going. And if you want a repeat, or if you just want to rewind, if you're watching this in the future, go ahead and do so. So number 1, I acknowledge that there is one goddess in essence, creatrix of all existences. Her forms are infinite. She manifests herself in our love, and we are all her lovers. In the sacred text that is linked below, Anna Livia Plurabelle talks about this connection with the goddess as the God within. And I love this distinction because I have been taught in fundamentalist Christianity, where I was raised, in the practice and community that I was raised, that God is outside, is not outside in nature, but outside of us, far away, that we had to climb our way to attain his blessing, his favor. And what I love about this first statement here, this principle, is that there is a form that the goddess manifests as form, and it's connected to love. And all of us individually, I think it's different than being like we are loved by God. It's as though the goddess and us as an individual, we're lovers, right? That's a different relationship than like a father to child relationship. The goddess has lovers. There's passion, there's intimacy, there's eroticism in this relationship. And that there's one goddess, I think, gives us an image that we come from this as well, that we aren't below, that there's like a centralized force of this goddess essence. And as we go on, you'll get a sense for yourself of what the goddess essence is for you, because of the quality that this is something individual and within, and part of the form, part of the body. We get to understand these principles without needing so much evidence or external evidence to prove our association or relationship to these concepts that I'm talking about. It is a very internal, it is a very personal knowing this way. Number 2. Got all my tabs open. I gotta get organized. Okay, number 2. Number 2, treat all beings with reciprocity, for the goddess lives in them as well as in us. I think this goes without saying that principle number 2 is something that a lot of us, especially in the spiritual community, we're learning the gift and the necessity of reciprocity, and not just humans, right? Not just in the exchange of value that we see in business, but also the plants, the animals, beings, technology. We'll get further on, and technology is mentioned in these 9 principles, because technology isn't just allocated to wires and artificial light and technology that I'm using right now to teach this, but technology that has stemmed from ceremony, that has stemmed from the goddess traditions, the matrifocal community, and wisdom traditions, or not even just wisdom traditions, but human traditions that were matrifocal. There was technology, there was a making of tools, because ultimately that's what technology is. It is either a process, a system, or a tool for a specific outcome. And so when we bridge this definition of technology with who and what and where we are today with our technologies, I think that there is something to be said about reciprocity here in relation to all things, not just plants and animals, but even the things that we create ourselves, being in reciprocal relation to it. And I'm going a little bit further down the line in the principles, but I think this second one can go without much saying, that this is important and this is necessary to heal the wounding of being taken advantage of over harvesting ourselves from the earth, of taking it into the business realm of profit just for profit's sake, versus keeping the flow of money going because we're working with others. We're collaborating with others. I water your garden, you water my garden. The bounty is different, but there's still a reciprocal exchange. And the second part, for the goddess lives in them as well as in us. I want to just sort of bring it back to that point, that this is an individual, personal knowing and experience, not something that not something that you even need to listen to me and believe what I say about the goddess, but more so it is a personal, intimate connection. I close my eyes every time because it reminds me of the infinite wisdom that is the quality of the goddess. And that's in everybody. That's in all of us. That is in all things as well. Number 3. Here she comes. Number 3. Tolerate other religions and do not compel others to join the circle of the goddess. The goddess will draw those to her who are ready and hear her call. This one is one principle that I think, if you have been raised in a fundamentalist religion, specifically Christianity, because that's where I come from and that's the background I can share from, that has been the entire thing of evangelism, right? Is to not tolerate other religions, and to also compel them to join, to get them into the fold, right? As if we are the ones who are saving them, as if they need us to save them. And there is something to be said about a way of moving through the world that honors, the goddess in each of us, that allows us to respect another's path, whether that's within a religion, a spiritual tradition, secular, non-secular. I think that it's important that if we're learning from the principles of the goddess and these 9 principles of the goddess, that we, even though there is a lot of pain and harm, I'm about to sneeze, that has been done in these religions, to myself included. If you know my story, you know what happened. I was expelled, and there was a long time where I was angry, where I did not tolerate the religion that I came from. But what there is a deep, deep humbling, and the word that's coming to mind is just wisdom. When you learn how to tolerate the religions that have harmed you, I think it makes you more powerful, actually. And the compulsion to get others to join the circle of the goddess, there's something a little cringe, that I'm not saying that I'm not that I haven't fallen into this, of trying to get people to like join a thing, and this is very tricky if you like run a business, if you are on a spiritual path and like you want to teach people. This principle is one that I am learning to become more skillful with, and I still have not mastered, but it is one that I desire to master, because I think it is so sexy and so deliciously mysterious when somebody is doing something in the world and there's not an energy of convincing, right? There's not this I'm compelling you, like you need this, or like this, the shadow side of the feminine, which can be like manipulation, where there's a complete transparency of when you're gathering people, or when you're teaching people, or when you're wanting to grow something in the world, that you don't have to convince people. You don't have to try to get them, into your group or your circle or your thing. You simply tell them, you simply state what it is. You give them everything about it. Maybe you don't teach it, or like you keep certain things behind certain walls, because there's a need for protection and boundary, of course. But there isn't this like sales pitch, there isn't this like, I'm trying to get you to arrive where I need you to be in order for you to like get into this thing. I feel like that's a lot of coercion. And I think the most impressive business people, teachers, practitioners, ceremonialists, to me, are the ones who aren't compelling or trying to convince people. They just simply know that people want this, and they're speaking from that place, and they're speaking to those people they know that want this. And I would love to explore more of this in a conversation about business and sales, because I think this is like an up level from what we've been shown in business. I also have a marketing degree. I went to business school, so I was not taught this version of selling and marketing, right? I have much to explore about this, but this is very fascinating to me. The goddess will draw those to her who are ready and hear her call. This, when you are speaking from this place, whether you are a practitioner or just a person who's who's on this path of the goddess, of feminine wisdom, trusting that they will be called when it's time. Like, I'm speaking to myself right now, trusting that they will be called when it's time, and you just continue, and you're just in devotion to what you need to be saying and expressing, and sharing, and trusting that they will be called when it's time by the goddess. I think there is I can't even speak to it. You're connected to something much more ancient and much more deep and much more powerful than you. When you're just simply listening, you're doing your job, and you're letting those who are called find you when it's time to find you. That is devotion. And there's so much beauty in that. This was a huge reminder for myself too. So thank you to everybody who finds this when it's time for you to find it. There's no one on this live right now, but I'm really loving this experience right now. So I know there will be people in the future who will see this. Hello. Okay, number 4. Worship her by restoring balance to her planet. In the Book of the Goddess, which is linked below, you can read for yourself, there is a description correlated to each of these principles related to a specific goddess. So there's goddesses in many different cultures. And for number 4, it talks about Gaia, our planet, our Earth Mother here. And worshiping her by restoring balance to her planet, there is something most earnestly needing to be restored by honoring this principle. I just continue to go back to climate change. I just continue to go back to how we have over-harvested the plants, the beings. I'm thinking about the Amazon right now and the devastation that is caused by this, not just by, the communities around, not just by the humans, not just, how this influences the humans who live there in these places where we're over-harvesting, but Gaia herself, the planet herself. When we come into relationship with the goddess and the earth, you can't help but feel so much rage and vengefulness, right? Like if this is our lover, if this is our mother, and people are treating her like this, I don't have to say anything else. I think you understand what I'm trying to convey here. And in the minuscule restoring balance, we're all connected, right? If you're watching this, I don't need to tell you this. We're all connected. And restoring balance in yourself, i.e., nervous system, balance, nervous system regulation. I'm contemplating that word regulation, but restoring balance in your relationships, in yourself, in your space, your environments. And we all know what balance feels like. So this isn't something that we need to understand with the mind, but it's a feeling. We all know what it feels like to feel balanced. When you're teetering on a thing and you don't feel balanced, you know what that feels like. And so restoring that sense, that frequency, that understanding in the body of balance in us, in our relationships, in our environment, in our communities, this is honoring principle number 4. And it ripples out through and creates a restoration of balance on the planet. Number 5. Oh, it doesn't. I can't send all of number 5. I'll send it in parts. Okay. That's the first part, and then the second part. Number 5. Eat mostly grains, vegetables, and fruits so that there will be enough food for all. When you eat, thank the goddess, the provider of all energy. Excuse me. It is not forbidden to eat animal flesh in moderation, but when you do so, you must thank the animal that you eat as well. I love this one. I think this is cutting into a lot of our culture these days about, how much meat should be eaten. Should we be vegan? Should we be vegetarian? All these sort of camps that you put yourself in and identities that you take on. But I love this because it makes it simple. It doesn't make it dogmatic where you have to choose a camp that you're part of. And a lot of and all spiritual traditions and religions talk about consumption of food. It's something we do every day. Like for me, I eat 3 times a day, more than 3 times a day. But eating mostly grains, vegetables, and fruits so that there will be enough food for all. Just think about how the fruits and vegetables and grains grow, right? They grow in mass amounts. You plant one seed, there's so much that comes from it, depending on the plant. And it's easy for us to then grow, or it's more easy to grow a lot of fruits and vegetables and grains all at once versus having many animals, right? And if we want to restore balance, kind of leaning on number 4, number 5 is speaking to our interaction with the byproduct of the gifts that our earth gives us. And then it also, number 5, I love this one because it doesn't say don't eat meat, right? It just implies this reverence to the animal that gave its life so that you can consume the meat. I don't teach these because I'm trying to evangelize you or because I'm trying to show that I'm this like perfect example of following in the way of the earth. And all of these principles are going to be are needed as reminders, not as standards to hold others to, right? It goes back to that number 3, the tolerating all religions, and then and not compelling others to join because they will be called on without you needing to, right? Because it comes from inside. But I love this principle of honoring the animal, thanking the animal, and it instills a connection and a reminder that this is an animal. It's not just meat that you find in a package in the grocery store, right? Like this came from a body. We're eating the body of another being who's, if you're following, these principles that the goddess also lives in, and in order to treat them in the way that is with love and respect and honor, when we eat them, just thank them, right? Don't take too much. And when we do this, everyone thrives. Not just you. You're not just trying to please goddess. You're not just trying to please goddess. That's not what's happening here. There's a specific reason why all of these principles are necessary, because it ripples out to the rest of us. And when we think about that, you're not just honoring you and your connection with goddess, you and your connection with God, you and your spiritual practice as an individual. You're honoring everybody. You're honoring all of life. You're honoring all of this that's happening here. And that's, to me, what we desperately need right now, is a reminder that we're all in this together. We're all in this together. All right, number 6. I'm gonna take a picture and post my stories real quick. No one's here, and I kind of want people to be here, so I'm just gonna post a little story. Okay. Cheese. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can skip ahead, or you can go to the bathroom or grab yourself a drink. Okay. Number 6. In the circle of the goddess, create consensus while respecting diversity of opinion. On the path of the goddess, there are many paths. I love this so much because this is just something that is just like true to who I am. Even while I was a Christian in the fundamentalist church, like I like loved knowing that everyone had their own perspective. I wanted to know what everyone else was thinking about something. I didn't want to just like charge my way forward, you know? I really wanted to I love gathering like data from other people. I like if there's something I want to do, then I'm like asking my friends, I'm like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? You know, getting like the pool of where people are at, what people are thinking, what they think. And then from that place of having gotten a consensus from everybody, like, what is your opinion? Would you do this? You know, like all that stuff. And then making a choice, that is something that's just like so innate to me. Like I love doing things that way because then I'm taking into account like my world, the people around me. Again, going back to the we're all in this together thing. And then when it comes to like collaborating with other people, we all bring something to the table. There's a specific skill set that each of us have whenever we get in a group together, or you're working with other people, and getting a consensus for like what each individual wants to put into the creation, creates harmony. And no one is above or below. No one is there'll be conflict because there's always conflict. But in order to have everyone have their opinion and to have like the biodiversity of everyone's thing that they're bringing, it's important to get that. And the second part of on the path of the goddess, there are many paths. It's so key, to heal the like cult mentalities that are so easy to arise because of fundamentalism, because of our need for other people to like be on our side with something. When we recognize that there are many paths to this same centralized understanding of what the language I'm using right now of the goddess within, it creates biodiversity in our creations, but also on the planet as well when we're listening to each other. I think about the plants a lot, and I let the plants teach me a lot about life and nature and business and creativity and all that stuff. Because the plants know how to make life. The plants don't know how to make life happen well. And when you watch them do this, they're showing us exactly how we need to also be doing it for there to be abundance, prosperity, longevity, sustainability in our work, in our life. Number 7, let's keep it moving. In your home, create a sacred space for the goddess to please her. Meditate on the goddess 3 times a day, at rising, at noon, and at sundown. This I don't do. I don't do number 7, only because this isn't a sacred text that I adhere my life to. This is a sacred text that inspires me, that I want to share with people, because you don't hear about these kinds of sacred texts out in the world. And often on the path of the goddess, that's what I'm going to use now when I talk about this way. On the path of the goddess, there's so many different expressions of it, right? And then this, I think, number 7, I relate to this personally because I don't practice this as like Blue's barking again. 1 second. I don't practice this as a dogmatic thing, but I do have this studio space. I have this room that I get to work in where I am pleasing the goddess because the goddess is in me. So when I please myself in the way that I do, however that is still honoring this principle. And what I feel with this principle, it is just simply having a space to connect with yourself, connecting to that godliness inside of you and taking pleasure in that too. Because I think a lot of spiritual practices and a lot of spiritual paths, there's a lot of like self-sacrificing. There's a lot of like, I just have this image of like flagellating, as like, or self-punishing as the way to enlightenment, or even just like doing really hard meditation, I think is another form of that, of just like brutality as a means to understand divinity. And what this is saying, it's different. It's a daily occurrence of honoring and pleasing yourself as a way of honoring and pleasing the goddess within. And like, when I say those words, like I see the really like corny divine feminine like stuff that I see online. There's nothing wrong with those things. I just feel like it's just more personal to each individual, like what it looks like. So I don't want you to like hear this and think, oh, I have to, like that my pleasing of the goddess in me looks like this, like when I'm talking about pleasing the goddess within, or like to create a sacred space for the goddess to please her, it shows up in different ways. Like just now before this class, I was outside, and the earth really does take pleasure in our tending to our gardens, in learning how to build the fire, in cleaning up our space. Like one of the ways to please the goddess that I practice, that I'm not thinking about this principle when I do, but I do it. It's just keeping this space clean, keeping it organized. Like when I take pleasure in this, the goddess is taking pleasure in this. At nighttime, there's different ways to take pleasure. If you know what I'm saying. And then the like regiment of like morning, noon, sundown. I like that there's like a system to that. Like I eat my meals at the same time, and like it helps me to like fall into a rhythm, and I don't have to think about it. And everyone's designed differently, like pulling in human design now. Not everybody works well on like a specific system like that of like the morning, noon, sundown practice. But I think the meat of this, number 7, is really creating a space, a physical space, like a tangible space, whether that's like in your closet, in a corner, a whole room, in your garden, in your backyard, a shelf. This is really speaking to like the altar, of where you worship the goddess, you please the goddess. And if the goddess is inside, then how many different ways can we please the goddess at this space? All right, number 8. Ooh, and I love how perfectly this moves into each other from 7 to 8. Number 8, sexuality is her sacrament. Enjoy this gift and bless those who you share it with love and affection. Remember that overcoming jealousy is the cause of cessation of the cycle of rebirth. The second part, I don't quite understand. I understand the cessation or overcoming jealousy part. But as the cause of cessation of the cycle of rebirth, I think this is about, and this is me like working through it right now. So take what you want from what I'm saying in all of this. The cycle of rebirth is a painful cycle, right? It is birth, you do some stuff, you see who you are, and then some stuff falls away, and then you die. In a sense, we do this all the time. And I'm, like we're those who are intimate with the cycle, you know the moon, you know the moon, you know the seasons. You either have a menstrual cycle and you understand this from the body, or you just understand this from the conceptual level because you've gone through it. We all have gone through it in some capacity, and we're all going through it now because we're alive. And I think the overcoming jealousy, I think, is a way, what this is saying, I think, is a way for us to cease that painful process of being reborn. And that's where I'll leave it, because I'm not sure so much, but I am still in contemplation with it. So I would love for you to be in contemplation with this with me as well. And sexuality as her sacrament, and enjoying this gift and blessing those who we share it with, love and affection. This is gorgeous. This is just gorgeous to me. It goes with it might go without saying that growing up in the fundamentalist Christian church, sexuality was not a gift. Sexuality was to be shameful of. It was something to hide. it was something to be covered up, quite literally. And I don't think that that's on accident. You know, that's not on accident. But sexuality as her sacrament, as something sacred and personal and hers, is powerful. It's power. And for it to be a gift, it is a gift. It is the most like physically ecstatic experience. And blessing those who we share it with, love and affection. It's a way of bringing beauty into sex, because sex can be a weapon. It can be weaponized. It can be weaponized, whether by suppressing other sexuality, and it can be a weapon through those who wield it as a tool for manipulation, as a tool for instilling fear, control, dominance. There's kink. That's also a thing. There's pleasure in that. And I think that on this path of the goddess, we have to be aware and balance. Again, where does it say? Bringing balance is also part of this principle in relation to sexuality. Number 9, we're at the end. Number 9, announce the religion of the goddess to the world through good works, honest words, and selfless acts of beauty and love. This can toe into the line of the evangelism, the what number 3 was talking about, of like trying to compel people with the word announce. I think I like, but also with the word announce, it's not a compulsion. It's not a like do this. It's not a it's not that. But announcing reminds me of like a celebration, like announcing that you did something amazing, or announcing that you accomplished something great, announcing that you're going to do this thing. It is like it is a stepping out. It is a coming out. It is a saying of something that's important. I'm announcing this because I believe this to be important. And it's not necessarily, it's a outward expression. And announcing looks like this to me. It's not a come and do this. It's not a this thing. When done skillfully, I think. And the way to announce that is through good works. Yeah. Through honest words. Yeah. And selfless acts of beauty and love. I want to emphasize beauty and love here, because I think that in the spiritual practices, or the religion that I came from, I think that beauty, there was like an ownership over what was beautiful, and there was an ownership of what love looked like. But in that definition of beauty and love, it's not selfless, it's selfish, right? So if we take a disposition of selflessness in creating beauty and love, I think of the artist just simply creating something because it just needs to be made, not because there is an element of like, look at what I did. This came through me as the individual, as a person who has a personality. But in doing this, there's a natural cadence to the sharing of beauty and love, just simply as an announcement that this exists. Okay. And then I wrote here, like a long time ago, I wrote out these 9 principles of the goddess in my notes a while ago, and then I saw that it was Friday the 13th. I probably should talk about that connection, actually. I don't know. I feel like we've heard already all the things about Friday the 13th being a superstitious day, bad luck stuff on this day. And then also, most recently, at least like in my social media channels, there's been a lot of individuals like debunking this and tracing like the history as to like when it became this like superstitious holiday or occasion where you don't do certain things. And I think that just really comes from the fear of powerful women, specifically in like the witch community, or like the yeah, and that whole stuff and that whole thing. I don't really feel like talking about it actually, so I'm not going to talk about it. But if you're watching this, you know why. You know why I'm talking about this on Friday the 13th. And if you don't, you will. That's all I have. And I am so honored that you watch this in the future. And if you want to read The Book of the Goddess by Anna Livia Plurabelle yourself, I have all the links in the description. And in that, you can also just read the 9 principles themselves, and then each of them goes into how it's connected to a specific goddess that she works with. What else? I think that's it. Thank you so much for being here and for listening, and may the goddess in you and the goddess in all things call you when it's time and remind you of these 9 principles, these 9 ever-evolving relationships with each of them. Okay, bye. Happy Friday the 13th.